in the last video of this list, we just started with Hello World, of course, because this is the second one. The next topic that you need to learn in order to write a GUI program, any GUI program in any platform, is how to process messages, or in Microsoft terminology, it is how to process event. There are millions of events in a computer system, but in this video, we want to process the most common event on the most common widget, or the control in an older Microsoft terminology. They call it control, but we would be calling it widget, which is button. And we will also explore something about responsiveness, which is the kind of issue that you have in web programming. But it is also an issue in desktop programming, but it's a lot easier to be handled, because when we develop a GUI program, the platform that it is going to be running is the same platform where we develop it. Unlike web application, when we develop one web application, we need to think how it will be run on a browser, on a desktop, and also a browser on a tablet, also a browser on mobile phone. So it is a lot more difficult. But for today, we will only cover the way how we handle responsiveness in GUI programming using the vanilla calculation of the window dimension. We are not going to go into any kind of widget or tool that handle responsiveness. This widget or tool that we use to handle responsiveness is what we call layout object. And maybe even before that, we want to explore the way how we can avoid responsiveness, which means we can sort of force our GUI application or Windows application to have one static dimension that cannot be changed by the user. That is one way to work around the problem, by actually literally walk around it, skip it. Okay, let us get started with a program to handle button event. And also, I would like to highlight one mistake that I made in the last video, is that I chose a different .NET version than the one that I usually do. But maybe the .NET version that we use in the first video to display Hello World is better. But in this video, I would like to show that the previous version of the template, still .NET framework, but the previous version of the template that is included in Visual Studio 2022 is still good, and in certain way it is better than the latest one. Start a new project. Okay, the one that I used in the GUI Hello program in the first video was this template. But the one that I used to be using before was this template. So let us try this template, and let us take note about the most obvious differences. Okay, now one thing that is obvious is that with this template, the template that has the .NET framework in bracket, we can refer back to the legacy versions of .NET framework. But in the template that I used before, the one that I use for the GUI Hello, does not handle the older version. So that's one different. I'm saving it in desktop again under a folder button. Now I want to name it head count. I would like to use a name for any of my program that will give the impression about what the program is doing, rather than telling that this is tutorial 1, try, button try, or things like that. The one that students like to use. So if you are a student, you want to be a professional programmer, start by naming your assignment or your task with professional name like this. This shows that you have a strong intention to be a professional programmer in the future. Okay, create. Okay, we get a similar window of form, but if you notice, the icon that we have in the form is different from the template that I used before. So that is another different. But of course, those are minor issues and we can always create almost identical application with the different with only in the icon. And of course, we can change the icon to whatever icon that we want. Alright, so just like the GUI Hello before, even at this stage, we can straight away run the program. So, okay, we get the form, can be maximized, restore, minimize, and restore again and close before we continue. So, this app will be an app about clicking a button and count how many clicks that we get. Knowing that, okay, so what is the first thing you can think of? What is the widget that we want to drag in? Of course, a button. Okay, so we drag in a button. Then we want to display the number of hit. We need a label. Just like when we want to display hello world, we need a label. I think by now that we know what we want to do, and we are also assuming that you already know a considerable amount of fundamental, let us quickly make changes on this application based on our assumption that we know what we are doing, and we also assume that you know some level of fundamental. So what is the first thing? Change, of course, the caption on the button. Now let us just say hit. All right, then let us save and run. Okay, so it's working. No need to test the minimization, maximize, and close. We just click it. You see, nothing happened yet because we have not defined the event handler. Okay, so we want the program to do something when we click the button. So that is what we call processing the button click event. What we do? We double click. Now we double click the button. By doing double clicking, we effectively give instruction to Visual Studio to create a default event handler for the button. In this case, default event handler for a button is the handler for click event. And you can see here, we haven't renamed button 1 just now to a proper name yet. We will do that later. Okay, so what we want to do when button 1 is clicked, we want to increase a variable. Okay, so what variable? Let's say we want to call it hit counter plus plus. But you can see here, hit counter is not declared yet. Okay, you can see there, hit counter does not exist. We need to declare it as private data, internal data. So this is private. I'm not going to go deeply into the concept or theory of object-oriented programming, but I assume that you know a little bit of it. So we are declaring hit counter as a private integer so that we can increase it in this event handler. Alright, so now we get rid of the error just now. But then doing this, you still cannot see the number of hit or the number of click on the button. We need to put the value of the counter onto the label 1 just now. So we need to take label 1 dot text. Remember the text property of the label. That before this we change to hello world. Okay, as of Visual Studio 2022, Visual Studio is sort of smart enough to predict what we want to do. So in this case, I think the prediction of what we want to do is almost exactly correct. We want to take the value of the hit counter, which is integer, convert it to string, and then we can place it onto the text of the label 1. So if you want to accept this suggestion or prediction, just click on tab twice. Okay, so this already shows that Visual Studio is a smart code editor. And why we need to do the conversion of the hit counter to string is because the text property of the label is a string. So we need to make both left and right to be balanced, to be the same or equal. This is a mathematical fact that all programmers should understand and appreciate. Okay, so I think you can save this, Control S, then we can run it. Okay, click, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Congratulations, we get our first objective, or the first thing that we want to do. We want to first count the hit upward, or in ascending counting. Okay, so before we continue to another mode of counting, which is backward descending, we want to make some housekeeping or a better documentation of our program. You see, this label 1, the name is not a self-documenting name. Label 1 is a vague name. We know that it is a label, but we don't know what it is. For this kind of application, this hit counting up and down is still okay because we only have maybe 1 or 2 label. But when your application is complicated enough, you have maybe 20 label or 50 label, you need to give the label name, or in this case the variable name, to indicate the purpose of the label. So how to do that? We need to go to the design, click on the design. The label here, we need to change the name. Changing the name, the property name in bracket, changing the name effectively, changing the variable name of the label object. So my practice is that to give the purpose of the label, which is to display the count, spell it as just CNT, but the type of the widget is label. So I keep the purpose and the type of widget. Label is just a type of widget, even though it is also an object name. All right, so that is it. Once we do that, okay, if you go back to the event handler, you will see that label 1 just now is changed to count label. Okay, so Visual Studio is also smart enough to do an automated variable name changing for us. And then what is the next one? Button 1. Okay, this one. We want to change the name also. So now I want to change this to hit up, to tell that the hit to this button will be counted up. And I want to make the variable name, or the button name, as a camel notation. A few words that we combine together to become one word to indicate the variable name. We join them together, but the first character of each word is capitalized. This is what we call camel notation. And when we do this, okay, uh, I think there is nothing change here, except this is the visual of the layout design. You can see the actual code of the design, which is this one. Let me see. Yes. the naming of the widget just now as level 1 or button 1 is actually changed also. Okay, hit up button or the change, and everything related to that button is also changed to the new variable name. All right, so we can close this one, and then maybe at this point of time we save it, and then why not still for the button, instead of putting hit as the caption, we put count up. All right, then for the label, instead of starting with the default label 1 at the beginning of the program, we started with what? With 0, of course. Okay, so save it again, run again. Okay, then you get everything working fine. Next, we want to add another button for counting down. So to do counting down, it is almost the same. You should expect that you need a button, of course, and then what different is now that the event handler, instead of counting up or using the plus plus operator, now it is going to use the minus minus operator. So let us first drag the button that we want to use. So let us quickly do what we did for the count up button just now. The caption change to count down. The name, let us follow the same naming convention. Let's copy this one, Control C, then this one, we paste it, but of course we need to rename to hit down button. Then anything else? I think next is the event handler. Double click on the countdown button. We get another event handler. Okay, so we forget to rename the event handler to the proper name. All right, after that we fix this. So what we do, just follow what a good programmer will do. Copy and paste. Copy from the count up event handler, Control C, and then paste it in the countdown. Just change the counting direction from plus plus to minus minus. That is it. I think we can run it now. Okay, count up, works, still working. Count down is also working. That is it. So now let us change this to, instead of button 1 underscore click, we change to hit up button underscore click. So copy from down, paste it to up. Okay, so this is the event definition or event handler definition. We also need to change it in the designer CS, the C# definition of the designer. There must be something that is causing error. So this one, okay. So change it here also. All right. I hope that is it. Then we save everything. Why doesn't this save? Okay, never mind. Okay, everything's still working. All right, so one more, if you realize our caption of the window here, let us change to hit up down counter. So click on the form, then change the caption of the text property. Hit up down counter. All right, save it. Come. How come? So why just now the form 1 caption didn't get updated? Let me try again. After closing and reopening Visual Studio, hit up, up, down, counter. Okay, now I get it, or we get it. I don't know what happened just now. There must be some glitch in the Visual Studio. Okay, so one more before we go on and tidy up our interface. And remember, we also want to do some layout locking so that our window will not have to change layout due to resizing of the window, because we want to lock the window size. One more thing to do is to rename form 1 to main form. So what we do, this is just to maintain proper naming convention. I would like to change it to form, instead of form 1, it is main form. Okay, so you'll be prompt whether you want to rename everything. Say yes. Okay, so everything now is main form. Then save everything, run. So everything looks okay. Next is to beautify our window or clean up our interface and lock our layout. So what are we going to do then? Since this application is very simple, only have one purpose, counting up and down, the two button that is used for that purpose should be the one that occupy perhaps half of the window, and the other half is by the counting value. Maybe that is one thing that we should do. So let us rearrange the button. Maybe this size is the best. And then let us copy the size. It should be under size. Let us snap to a proper round number. Let's say the width is 150, the height is 100, and we do the same to count up button 150 and 100. Arrange it. Okay, as you can see, Visual Studio Designer has auto snap that can sort of guide you for the proper alignment of your widget. All right, then the caption on the button seems to be too small, so it's better if we enlarge the font size. What about 12? Okay, looks good. This one also 12. And then the other half of the interface should belongs to the label that is displaying the count value. So let's see, can we change the size? So no, we cannot change the size of the label. Unfortunately, for a widget that seems to be very rudimentary and very simple like a label, centering it is a challenge, because by default the label is set to be auto size. So why not we Google for information on how to center a label? Okay, Google with this keyword Visual Studio 2022 center a label. So we get this result from Stack Overflow. So the answer from Stack Overflow is quite impressive and straightforward. In order to center a label in WinForms, we need to set a few property of the label to certain value. First, the auto size property, set it to false. Go back to our program, auto size, set it to false. Then text align, middle center. Then doc property to fill. All right. But we don't have to change the doc property to fill, because this will actually relay out the entire form, which not the one we want to do now, because that is actually a slightest or smallest flavor of layout in Visual Studio. That is not what we want to do now. Okay, so since auto size now is being disabled, we can resize this. Okay, all right. Then, of course, the font size, let's make it, what about 16? Okay, then perhaps larger, why not 20? Okay, then I think that is it for the layout of the what we want to show in our application. Let's save this, run. Let us see that everything is still working. Okay, very nice. Then we want the entire form to match up with the actual content of the form. Okay, we set the width, and then let us match the height. I hope that is nice enough. Okay, save it, run again. Okay, now the app started up with the size that we want, but you see it still can be maximized, restored, and still can be resized, the width, the height, everything. Okay, we don't want this to be able to be done. So what we need to do for the form, we need to set or disable the maximize button. Maximize box, set it to false. So now there won't be any maximize button anymore, or it will be disabled. Let's try. Okay, so you cannot maximize anymore, but you still can resize, which will make our interface to be off center again. So we don't want to allow the user to be able to resize the form. So how to do that? Still in the main form or the property of the form, choose the border style. Instead of sizable, choose fixed single. Save it, run it. Now everything still working, counting up and down still working, but now you cannot maximize, of course, just now, and now you cannot even resize it. So we keep the arrangement or the layout of our widget in our application nice enough, and then we don't allow the user to mess it up by resizing our window. So that is just the trick. It is not the trick of the layout, but disabling the layout. All right, so that is the trick. I think that is all for this application, counting up and down.